Welcome to this webinar. What we'll be looking at today is just using our ACDC product, and I'll explain what that is, to validate GIS data from CAD drawings, submittals, and pushing that directly into ArcGIS Online. I'm Colin Hobson. With me we have Johan as well, who's the CTO at Spatial, and we will jump right into it. So the purpose of ACDC is a comprehensive solution essentially for a full digital workflow that we can automate, including data that's created and helping with that from CAD, but also validating that data with the GIS perspective in mind, and then pushing that data straight into your GIS pretty much. And so what we're trying to do is not have to recapture CAD data, not have to work from PDFs, but to literally enable people drawing submittals to validate that they've provided all of the attribute and other information that you need. There are a lot of tools out there that can read CAD drawings and show them in GIS. The challenge is not getting the dots and lines, as I call them. The challenge is getting the attributes and making sure that it's consistent and you can automate the capture from there. And so if I look at this little workflow, essentially, we provide tools for the CAD person. And most people think, oh, you've got a CAD standard. Well, that's fine, but it only allows you to get things on the right layers, the right colors, the right line styles. What you also need is a data and or a GIS standard. And what we mean by that is, well, where are the attributes? What attributes? Are they valid? And then furthermore, when you check that drawing, is the topology correct? Do you have point features that are isolated when they're supposed to be connected to a network? Do you have a network that is missing all sorts of point features? What if you have a long CAD line and it has a bunch of things on it like valve, 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 but in the GIS you want that as a segmented network. So what we do is we modify and provide tools to help the CAD draftsperson to use a standard. It doesn't help you give somebody a CAD drawing template and say, hey, there's 200 to 300 layer names here and we want you to use them. How are they supposed to figure out how that works? So we'll look at that a little bit. We also have a validation step in the middle. So what this is in the portal and on the desktop, but anyone can take a CAD drawing and either push the button on the desktop or drag and drop it into the particular project, and we will validate that. And what we're doing is checking for attributes, required attributes, connectivity, containment, closures, mandatory attributes, and domain values that they match. So a very comprehensive check. And if you back up a little, what this means is the drawing is being checked before anybody even accepts that drawing on the asset owner, the city or the county or the utility. It allows the CAD draftsperson to go and check their work before they submit it. And that's really huge because they're the ones who have all the attributes available, they have the coordinates available, they have the requirements are all there and they're involved in that. So we go from there. So here's a snapshot of the portal. This particular person's put in 35 failed submissions to this specific project, and then 15 have also been successful, which is kind of normal, a 3 to 1. So by about the third or maybe fourth time, if you're just starting out, you can see what's required. The system is a teach yourself, and obviously we've got all the supporting stuff, but in essence, it gives you markers on the drawing that says this is missing diameter or depth, or you cannot give me a valve that is no pipes connected to it, and that sort of stuff. And so they can go fix it. Or this is just flat out on the wrong layers, etc. And so we also then have a notification framework. Once on the portal, if a drawing has been validated and is ready for submittal, then it gets handed over to the asset owner, the city or a utility or a county, for example. And we can set up a workflow to notify people that this is now ready for any given project. It's also a digital in the cloud system, so it means anyone can go see, well, what's the state, what's been submitted, has it been approved, all sorts of stuff like that. Of course, once the drawing has been validated, we automatically create various outputs at that point. The lowest common denominator would be just shape files, which here you can see are featurized and shown in QGIS. We also in the portal have a DWG viewer, so you can check the original drawing without an AutoCAD license. You can just open it, go look at it. And so you can see something like this, zoom in on it. We've customized that so that it shows you errors. So if you were at that error stage, you could actually look at it in the viewer and get the properties of what the errors are, zoom to them, step through them, etc. And then what we're talking about today, and I'll show you that in a minute, is you can also just toggle a button and say, show me this data in ArcGIS Online. So if the drawing is valid, and been validated, then we have set up a integration so that you can push that data straight into ArcGIS Online. Now, obviously, that requires some work on the ArcGIS side, meaning that a project needs to get set up, and then we allow collaboration between the ACDC portal and ArcGIS Online so that you, as the city or the county or the utility, your ArcGIS Online account is used, and we push that data. So we publish it actually to the Open Spatial ArcGIS Online account, and then we have REST services and a publish mechanism that'll push it to a collaboration on your end. So you can get to the REST services. You can also see a map immediately. We also output straight to digital twins. Here's a cesium map, for example, of a CAD drawing. So that's in essence what we've added is this additional functionality to the ACDC platform. All the other stuff you see has been around for a while. It's tried and tested, and you can customize it and build it out to suit your own needs and your own rules and your own validations and to match your GIS standard. And in fact, we have tools to help you create your own CAD standards as well. So that's in essence how we go from the beginning directly to GIS data. So let's switch then to that. I'll come back to this diagram in just a minute, and I think we'll go straight to the ArcGIS Online part of this equation and go look at a live demo there. Johan, I'm going to hand over to you, and you can show that.
Thank you very much, Colin. Right, so there's the login to the ACDC portal. So what we're going to do here is here's a CAD drawing, normal AutoCAD. If I do turn on some of the photography in the background, you can see it's a new subdivision, some data that is then happening there. So let me turn that back off. So what I'm going to do is I'll use some of the tools there, and so there's some of the attributes that's then on this information. So let me put something there in the comments field. Let me save that drawing. And I'm going to now close that drawing. So what we'll do is I'll go to the portal. Let me log in then into the portal in there. So this will take us to the validations page. So in here it gives us a lot of information about the submissions, etc. And what I am going to do is, so let me go and drag and drop that CAD drawing in there. I'm going to say who the customer is, and I'll go and pick a project. All right, so I'm going to submit that drawing to the portal. It will now actually go through the validation process. So there we can see that process has started. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go here to another one. What Colin has showed you there was a submission that was done with some of the errors that it may point out. So here's an example of actual client drawing. So this is a road network. And what this will do is we actually give you an AutoCAD viewer in there. So if I go and look at the issues that we may have, so this one is saying no attribute block found. So on layer tactile, there wasn't any attribute blocks associated with that. So that in the road is those road tactile things that they stick on the road. So that one didn't have the necessary attributes in there. This one, it's too close to that, so there's some uncertainty which is the right one. Just to check, here's some stuff going on with the geometry within the check tolerances, etc. So it gives you the immediate feedback of what is wrong with that drawing, that you can actually then go and fix that. So just check out that. So validation is there. So if I go and look at it, actually open this up to say that process is, or that is in process at the moment. What we will do in here is then, so here's a project that was validated, and we'll get back to that one in a moment. So what this is saying is, for this particular one, here's all the stuff that was submitted. So I've got area of extent, I've got 16 pipes in there, I've got 18 pits, I've got 20 property connections. What it will also tell you is in your asset class, there's condition pits, area, swale. So there's some additional classes where information was not provided. So it gives you some context and information of what has been provided that you can actually then look at that. So it's now actually done that validation for us, and now I can go and look at that file online. So this will then take us to our ArcGIS environment. There's exactly the same drawing in terms of that information. And so if I go and look at that particular pipe with that, so what I'll also do is look at that same one in the CAD viewer. So this is actually doing the live data conversion. So basically that workflow where you can start from a CAD drawing into the portal, do the validation, fix all your stuff directly into ArcGIS Online, and all of that information is there. So if I then go and look at that one, at the attributes, so there's the edit that I've made right there in the beginning, and that's then followed all the way through directly from the CAD environment, validated, fixed, and then to your ArcGIS Online environment where you can go and have a look at that information. So Colin, back to you.
So what we've done in this presentation so far is really just get right down to it and say, hey, somebody created a CAD drawing, we validated it, and you could see it in ArcGIS Online, and we threw in a few terminologies, etc. along the way. If you've been around this a while, you know that it's not that easy, right? And so we have a whole process to set it up, because what you want is that the data you're getting out of the validated drawing, that matches what you want in your organization. What are your feature types? What's the data model? What are the columns? What are the attributes? And what are the domain values on those? And then also, what are the rules? Are you applying network rules for snapping, breaking, and connectivity purposes? Are you looking at containment rules, etc.? So when we build this out, ACDC is a completely customizable system. And we usually start with whatever you have. So I ask folks, do you have a CAD standard? And they may say yes or no. And I'll say, but do you have a GIS standard? And they may say yes or no. At which point I'll typically say, well, you actually do. The actual feature names, asset types, domain values, column names, and everything that you have in your GIS, that is your data standard. And if possible, you should match the incoming data to that. So we work with that. So if you're an asset owner, so that would be the utility group or the city or the county, you control what happens with this data. So you'll use these as resources and build out with the ACDC tool. So ACDC essentially has a couple of facets to it. One is it's a whole set of tools and solution to help you build out and configure your standards and the rules and the kind of CAD things that you would need to give to people to say, I want you to use this kind of drawing with these layers, with these line styles, with these attributes. So ACDC has this whole creation, configuration, validation in its configurator, which you can do on the desktop, which is kind of a go-between between CAD and GIS, and it can look at both and build them out. If your role is the engineering company or the drafting person, what you would typically work with is the ACDC portal. So Johan showed you a little bit of that. There's a lot more to it in there, but you as the asset owner control your own portal. You have your portal, and you can go in and create projects and assign engineering companies to those projects, and they can then submit to those projects. You actually set up what we call a toolkit and a bunch of stuff that when they log in, they are ready to go without intervention from you. The they part of that equation would be the engineering company. And what we're doing with ACDC, when I talked about those facets, if you log into the portal as the asset owner, you could have permissions to set up projects. If you log in as an engineering company, you're either the point of technical contact or you're one of the drafts people that gets assigned by the point of technical contact. And you then have a view of what has been published by the asset owner for a given project, and you can submit to that project. So that sort of deals with how you deal with external and engineering developer companies and internal. Now, there is also the ACDC product. It's been going for close to 14 years now. And it started out as a desktop application. And what we've done is match up the desktop capabilities with the cloud capabilities. I'm actually going to go back to that other slide I said I would come back to. And this is essentially the desktop. So it can allow you to create the tools that are needed, but it also allows you to submit and validate drawings right from in-house. And this allows you to have an in-house and an external kind of set of functionality. Of course, the portal provides additional functionality in terms of notification framework, in terms of pushing to ArcGIS Online. Here we just push straight into your STE database. So you can output there. But in essence, depending on your role, if you're the draftsperson, you're here, you're going to download a toolkit from the project that was set up by the asset owner. And you're going to create those drawings and publish them, much like what Johan just walked through. And I can look at that and I can talk about what the toolkits are. So in terms of a workflow, this is where we're at. If you are the drafting person, you go and log into the portal. Asconstructed.com is the URL for the portal. And what you're going to do is download the toolkit. So you would have a login and you would have access to whatever ACDC projects have been enabled for your particular login. And there's a whole framework for dealing with who has access to which projects, etc. And what you're going to do is install a little thing called Attributor, which is a free plugin that we provide. I'll show you how it works. But the reason is that's a plugin that allows you to use, as a standalone CAD person, allows you to use domain values on block attributes. And that's how a drafting person does not need to learn all of the layers and all of the attributes, because they don't know that when you put in the attributes, say for a pipe material, they don't know if when you want ductile iron, whether you want DI or DIP for ductile iron pipe, those sorts of domain values or acronyms, they have no idea and they're never going to know. But if you provide it to them, then you can. So what you're going to do is take those tools, draw and create your plans, and then once you've done that, you can go log in again and pretty much submit the drawing. And if it fails, you can go fix it. If it passes, the drawing is ready for review, and you're going to see what we just said. It's going to do notifications, and the data will be pushed to ArcGIS Online. So that's the workflow we've just kind of gone through at a very quick introductory level. There's a lot more to it. And then, of course, in ArcGIS Online and from ACDC on the desktop, you can push straight into your GIS. Or ArcGIS Online, there's REST services available, and you could pull those in, and then you're allowed also to upload like PDFs as well as the CAD drawings. So that's essentially cloud validation. So I'll show you a little bit of live stuff on that. So once again, we're right here. This is an example of some data that was drawn with the tools that we provided. So you'll notice then in the toolkits that you set up. So here's ACDC portal, which is asconstructed.com. It's a website. You can go look at stuff. There's things to look at, some videos. And it's designed for, if you were just a standalone, you're doing your one-off engineering drawing, you could do what we call project validation. If you were an asset owner, you would set up your own, and that would be an enterprise validation. You'd have your own portal. But anyway, you can go in and do on the portal login. It'll require a username and password. I logged in previously. But this would be then, when I logged in, we just go straight to where you submit a drawing. But actually, there's a dashboard, and you would see any projects you had here. And what you would do the first time out is you'd log into the project. You might have no validations, no drawings uploaded, and you would download from the toolkit. So if I went and took this toolkit here, this is prepared with the tools from ACDC to create a CAD and GIS standard, to create the install package that's got stuff in it like CAD template, blocks, menus, etc. It even includes a teach yourself hands-on intro and a document for errors and common fixes and everything else. So typically what that would look like is, so these are the documents that are there. They've got those PDFs that I just referenced, and this is what these folks have uploaded. In the toolkit, there would be a drawing template. There may even be a DWG file, and there typically be a hands-on exercise. So what we've done is, as we've mentioned, ACDC supports custom standards and developed standards. You might have noticed Johan using various terminology that might not actually add up to normal commonplace stuff in the US, because he was using a drawing using an Australian standard for that particular CAD setup. What I'm looking at is one where we have built up our standard so that we have an off-the-shelf working demo, and it's actually pretty useful. And we base that on the National CAD standard. So when you go into this drawing template here, you'll see it's got the National CAD standard. So this is a live customer. We also provide menus, and I'll show you why in a minute. So this is water, sewer, storm, telecom, civil, site. There's natural gas, a bunch of other things, telecom in there. And you can go look at all of that. And of course, we include a whole lot of blocks. So here's like a couple of hundred blocks. And then also you might notice either text or actually files that are encoded so you can't get to them. But these are the two files that we provide for standalone domain values. How does that work? So let's say I was in the portal. I download that toolkit. It's essentially all of that stuff in the folder that I showed you. I go into AutoCAD, and what I do is I set those blocks in a folder, and I can use those if I just go to options here in AutoCAD. So I've just set up a search path to go find those symbols, okay? And so there, if I wanted to put down a water valve, I would need to know what block to use. And so to make that easy, or say a manhole or a clean out or whatever, to make that easy, we actually provide a menu. And also notice, so this drawing that I'm showing you was created from the blank template. So the blank template includes all the layers of the off-the-shelf stuff that's supported. And you could customize that per project yourself very easily, standard AutoCAD stuff. You may notice this is National CAD Standard Naming Convention, discipline, major, minor, minor. And so you can see a lot of layers for sewer, storm, natural gas. The problem is, and once again, they are standard regular AutoCAD layers. So if you knew that you needed to put a water meter on a layer called, or a hydrant called water hydrant point, then you could literally just drag and drop the block and use standard conventions to go put that there. Of course, that's hard to go and explain to someone, oh, by the way, here's our organization's CAD standard and GIS standard. You need to learn all these layer names and use them because that's what we're going to expect and validate against. And that's part of this challenge is you need to standardize CAD drawings coming back as well as the data that goes in them. So what we've done is we actually provide these menus. Once again, I don't have to use them, but they're useful because now the features are already here. They match your GIS. So if I wanted to come in here and put in, I don't know, just say a cleaning port, I could go there. And what happens is it is also automatic because of the menu, standard AutoCAD menu, by the way. It's a custom menu, but it's using the same standard tools. And it's basically a macro that says use this layer and use this block name. And so you can see it's already toggled to the right layer. So I didn't have to learn the clean out has to be on that layer. And I can go in. You'll notice it's also already turned on. The snap mode, it knows it needs to be at an end because it's a clean out. Whereas if I put in a valve or something, I put in any bit of attribution, I can sometimes have it snap to the middle, to the end. So I can go in. These ones already have stuff. Let's see. Here's one. I'll put it here. And so it'll snap, and then you'll see it automatically pull up this dialog, which already has all of the drop downs. And that's using the value so that I don't have to learn that you need the full word gravity for the flow type in this given thing. And you can see anything asterisk is mandatory. And this is how you can give a tool to the CAD person. And this is the attribute. It's a little plug-in, as I mentioned, that you can download for free. But it's looking for those little text files or encrypted files so that it is an embodiment for standalone, work on your own, not online, and build out your stuff. So this was an easy one. You don't have to use these, but if I don't fill out a mandatory, it's going to actually warn me and say, look, you can't give me a sewer point feature without the room elevation, the depth, or the invert elevation. And you can carry on and say, well, I don't care. Or you can say, okay, that's fine, I'll go fill them in. And so that goes. And so what you've done is in those attributed blocks, you can see all of these have been added. So if I look, say, at this block, which we use as a block to go with a linear feature, that block has properties. So these are them right here. So part of the ACDC setup is our system can create all of these blocks with all of the attributes to match your GIS, and it'll show which ones are mandatory and required. Problem with AutoCAD is this is free form. You fill it out, and that allows for anybody who can type or not type, in my case, to put any nonsense in here, and you don't know that that's going to match your GIS. That's why we produce attributors. So I can select a block like that, and all attribute is two little icons. It's an add-in. You can either insert a new one or edit with it, and you can then use those commands, obviously, on the menu. But if I go edit with attributor, on there, it pops up that block that I had selected, and now all of a sudden, I can see all of these drop downs. So what I'm displaying here is the code value. The first value is what goes in the database. The other ones are the readable descriptives. And I've set in this little tool, you can actually set, do you show just the description? So I can do that. So they need to know that for PVC, they can just go right there. And those are mandatory. So this is how you can enforce the use of your CAD standard. So once you've taken this drawing, you can take the drawing like you hunted and literally go and upload that straight into the portal here. which is what's happened many times on that particular. And if the drawing fails, you'll get errors and it'll actually mark them. So this says, okay, I had 1,600 entities processed, 5 failed. There's different kinds of fails. They can attribute errors, break errors, or spatial errors. And then you can go in and look at view the failed drawing. Now notice, I don't have a view it in ArcGIS Online here. 2 reasons. One, this drawing is not valid. You only get the ability to see it as the asset owner when it is a valid drawing in ArcGIS Online. We don't want to publish bad data. So that feature A is not here because I'm not this user. That's an add-on and it's not a past drawing. So I can go in and view this. So this is the Autodesk viewer that you saw. Johan whipped right through that because I think he's wanting really to show you all the wonderful things there. And he showed some of these. This is very, very useful because now I can actually keep it open. I can go in and look and find any error. And the way you find errors, we actually, these arrows, by the way, there's an option in the ACDC portal where you can turn that on and off. When you run a validation, we actually do check the direction of flow. So you want the sewers going toward the main and the water going away. And these, we just put these as visual markers, the arrows, so that you can see the directionality. It really helps with error checking. So that little red circle there, if I click on it, that is an error marker that we put in and said that this thing, we snapped it. And so essentially it's marked there to say, listen, that wasn't actually snapped. And we just cleaned that up for you and we snapped it. Here's another one. You can see, so these are on layers. And the layer itself it's either going to be either attribute or geom or extents. And so you'll go in there and look at it. So here's another one. There's 2 blocks. So this person put 2 attributes on top of each other. What we do with these attributed blocks is we assign them to linear or point features. And that's how you get GIS data on a linear feature. You try and do that in AutoCAD, you're either working with object data and it's pretty freehand and you have very little control on what you put in there. So that's how you can check these errors. You can go fix them. You can look at this one. It says, okay, this sewer line, you'll notice the arrow's going the wrong way for that lateral. And so the error we're getting is there's no main found at the end of this service connection. And we've marked it so you know which one. You can just walk through those layers. All you got to do is flip the direction of this pipe and then resubmit. So when you resubmit, this person submitted that a couple of times. When you resubmit, it passes, you push it for review. And at this point, you can either download the simply lowest common denominator, you can download shape files. That would be those. You can view the drawing, or if you have the ArcGIS Online plugin on here, then you can publish it and there's a collaboration setup because that requires it's a 2-way street, the collaboration. That needs to be with the organization. So that's essentially how we build that out within ACDC tools and toolkit. So that's really how that all works. You can do in-house validation. So I could sit in ACDC here, and if I drew this in-house, I could literally go to the ACDC menu and literally say validate the drawing, and it would do it in-house. Runs the same engine that we're running in the portal. So that's there. And then just to move along and show you a couple more things, there's a fair amount of things you can do in the portal itself. You can go in and create all your projects, assign those. You can come in and kind of look and manage the projects, where they're being created. There's some examples. You can set up a workflow and build that out. On the GIS side, if you look at the GIS data, what we need is the feature name, the columns, data types, and then look at the domain things, and we actually build out snap rules, and we build that. So if you're building out your standard, you need a GIS standard, and that is essentially your GIS schema. And then you also need a CAD standard, and what you want to do there is get things on very specific layers, look at what kind of attributes they are and build those out, and we allow that. So the ACDC configurator is a user interface. Here it is showing you a sewer pipe gravity, and it can be a line or a polyline, lightweight polyline. It says what the table name is, the block name, and you can put external output and what the internal table would be. And then if you click on the attribute side, these would be attributes. You can actually build those out, add them in, and check them and look at. So I'm here on contract number, which comes from a common block, and I didn't really explain that, but that's one of the ways we come in on this drawing here. That there is the common block, and in this instance for this user, it set up the year, the project number, the date, and who submitted it. But we've set up a rule to apply those essentially blanket common information across all of these attributes. So when those are in the GIS, they already have the project number, etc., and the documentation around it. Once again, you can add any attributes you like in that setup. So that's really how we're working with that. You can also then, in our user interface, build those menus that I showed you and set them into the groups and all of the features and what to do. So here's an example, even preview the menus as you've seen and shown up there as well. The attributor is really quite powerful because it's user-friendly, tells you what the feature is. It's not just some arbitrary block name, that's a file name. Mandatory is there, puts drop-downs. It can support extra values like this. So this is the Australian standard Johan was using. They're really got way many columns in there, but don't get me started on that. And so you can build that out. And it's pretty much a text-based definition that we can do. But this is really the outputs in ArcGIS Online. Click on the feature. Here you've got all of those attributes that came straight out of the CAD drawing and build it out. So that's, in essence, what I wanted to show you today in this particular webinar, is going from CAD to attribute data in ArcGIS Online. And so really going from this all the way through the workflow to getting output data in whatever form you want and all the way straight into ArcGIS Online. And then you can obviously script anything you like with the REST services and build it out. So, you know, what this product does is it literally reduces the amount of working of PDFs or CAD drawings to recapture existing data. And if we look at the benefits, it's really a huge improvement in data quality and in reduction in the amount of time. So if you look at this little chart, we did a survey and we looked at it, it really on the average customer saving about 400 odd days a year per organization. Now, obviously that depends on how many projects you've got and also the amount of work to set the whole thing up. Look, if you're only doing 3 or 4 projects in a year, probably this is more. But if you're doing 10 or more, every single project, you're not going to have to run through this. It's automatic. So we looked here, customers started here after running this for about 3-4 years. They're getting, you know, over 90 percentile confidence in their data, and they've reduced it from anywhere from 30 days to a few hours. It's down to less than a day per project. And that, you know, this is a generalization, but it is blatantly significant where you can go from this quadrant of it takes a long time and we're not that sure about our data to this quadrant where it is quick and it is good. And so that's in essence what we wanted to do. And so the comments we get back is by having a digital thing, it levels the playing field. Everybody submits through the same portal. We get GIS-ready. We push it straight into your Esri environment, and we can literally customize for your standard. So that's, in essence, the webinar for today. We typically have webinars every other month. Next one is in April, and that one is looking at the pros and cons of adding cloud capabilities to your GIS. Everyone talks about it, but have you really stopped and thought about, well, why are we doing this? And what's the real benefit? And what do we need to watch out for? So that's a whole different thing. And yes, in essence, today's webinar is pushing that data into a cloud-based solution. One example thereof, and it's very useful. It allows multiple people in this case to get to it, and also the data to be available as a REST service. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.